Our next guest knows the pain currently being felt by the Olympians who are having to wait at least one more year after hearing that the International Olympic Committee had postponed the 2020 games scheduled for this July in Tokyo until next year. At least they're getting a chance next year. Our next guest also is the greatest Olympian in many people's eyes. The IOC called him the sportsman of the century. Sports Illustrated called him the Olympian of the century, a nine-time gold medal winner, the fastest man on the planet during his heyday. Carl Lewis joins us right now here on the stadium. Hey, Carl, it's Michael Kim. How are you today?
Hey, great, Michael. That's nice to talk to you. I guess we don't see anyone for a few weeks now.
Yeah. By the way, do you ever get tired of hearing all of the accolades and having people run down your resume?
Well, you know what? It's kind of weird because when I retired, I wanted to get away from all of it. But now I have a granddaughter, so I don't mind her hearing it now. Say, Papa, that's Papa, you did that, so it's much better now.
Yeah, sure. Well, you were an Olympian in 1984, in 1988, 1992, 1996, and you had a career, that spanned four different Olympic Games. It could have been five because 1980 you qualified for that team before the United States led a boycott of the Moscow Games. So what were your emotions back then? If you can take us back to 1980 when you found out that all your hard work up to that point would not be fulfilled.
Well, if I remember correctly, I was only 18 years old. I was actually the youngest male on the entire Olympic team. I know Isaiah Thomas was a little bit older, but so I came from a different perspective of, the world's going to have open to me the next few years. I'll go back in 4 years. So it was a little different. There was a level of frustration though, because the athletes had no voice. It just all of a sudden on TV, President Carter said, "Hey, you guys, we may not be going." And then next thing you know, we're sitting around waiting, and then you're not going. So it was extremely frustrating, but also for me to watch the process as it happened through a lot of the older athletes that were affected directly.
What advice would you give to these current Olympians who are having to wait at least one more year? I mean, they at least had the opportunity to still compete for gold, unlike you did in 1980.
Well, it's unprecedented times. I'm a coach at the University of Houston. We had about 15 people that were probably going to either be on the Olympic team or go to the Olympic trials. I don't even know how to train them because their next meet will not be probably until next February. So we're all going through this process. I think that there's some people saying we may have a season later on. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think our focus shouldn't be on trying to get back to track meets. It should be trying to make sure that we get a global pandemic stopped so that we can live a healthy life. I think the first priority is health. Second priority is business. Get businesses going so people can get their jobs back. So I think we need to get out of the business of how can we get our thing back and go there. Secondly, I think 1 year is a fair move. I think that this whole process worked out. I'm happy with it. The athletes had a voice in it, number one, through social media, and then through the outreach that the USOCP did. I mean, they had town halls, different conversations. So the athletes felt a part of it. And when they were polled, they actually polled very high to move it, to delay it. So I think that this is a much better process. The athletes respected more. And being just 1 year and not canceling it, it allows even the older athletes to wait one more year, and I think they can still make it.
Going back to your own career, what do you think, Carl, if you had the opportunity to compete in 1980 and things would have gone as planned, so to speak, what are the chances that you would not have run in 96 in Atlanta?
Well, no one's ever asked me that, actually, believe it or not. I never thought about it, but looking back on it now, I didn't put the two together because when I started in 1980 and then went to 1984, I never thought I'd run after 84. So each Olympic game just kind of happened. And after 92, there was even talk already that, okay, I'm done. But each time I had unfinished business. And so I wanted to come back. I know in 80, I made the team in the long jump, and I was on the relay team, which probably would have won. So I think that would have been at least another gold medal there and possibly a medal in the long jump. So I really still think I would have run because I didn't see a connection between each Olympics. I just went year to year and kept running. And then finally I said, well, it's time to stop.
All right, you talked about unfinished business, and let's get back to your athletes there at the University of Houston. We had a ruling this week from the NCAA that granted eligibility for one more year for the seniors, certainly there as far as the spring sports are concerned. How does that affect you and your program?
Well, first of all, I think it was a good idea for the NCAA to do it. We have to applaud them. I know some people are criticizing, but what they basically did is gave everyone a redshirt year and said from seniors that are coming back to freshmen coming back, they just said it's a redshirt year. Secondly, they did address the financial issues that some would have by opening up finances for schools that couldn't afford it, but also allowing the schools to adjust to scholarships. I think it's a fair thing to do. We also have the portal where if there are issues where schools can't afford it, athletes can go into the portal and transfer. So I think we probably came up with the best idea we could for spring sports. But we're in a situation in track and field that's unique. We're the only sport that has 3 seasons, and we're in fall, winter, and spring. So based on this ruling, track and field is put in a major disadvantage because we have athletes that actually can redshirt different seasons. So next season, every senior that comes back is going to actually have to redshirt fall and winter sports. So that's going to affect them dramatically. So now they only get to come back for spring. But the rest of the team, now think about it, we have about 55 men and 65 women on our team, 120 athletes. Every single one has to redshirt at some point in their career. So just think about this. If you had a football team and this happened in the fall and you had 88 players or so, and say, well, in their career, everyone has to redshirt. I know a lot do, but you're saying that every single one has to. It's going to be dramatic change. This next indoor season will be a lot slower because a lot of the seniors can't come back. And then some schools have to figure out, how can I manage this? And some people won't have the ability to afford them, so they'll leave school. Some will not even come back. So there's going to be a lot of uncertainty, but I think they really need to address, especially the winter season for track and field, or else we're going to have teams that simply can't field enough people to go to their conference during their indoor seasons.
What about the advantage, perhaps, of some of the athletes who do have now 2021 in Tokyo in mind, and they're able to ease into their training right up to the Olympics? Might that help them?
Well, I think it's amazing. I mean, I look at a team like ours, and because I know it's best, but I look on our men's side, we're one of the top sprint programs in the country, but we're going to be able to keep our 2 seniors. One made it to nationals coming in. We had an athlete that transferred in that was injured. He's going to be healthy. He's one of the top 3 or 4 sprinters in the country. And we have the fastest kid in the world from South Africa that's coming in high school, probably the fastest kid in the last 10 years. So in reality, for us, it's great. All of our seniors coming back all made the nationals. Our incoming class is amazing. So I think we're going to have a situation where some of the distance programs, maybe like a BYU or Northern Arizona, or LSU or maybe Florida, some of these schools like ours are going to create super teams for one season. That one outdoor season, you may see a ton of collegiate records because you're having like a super team in different disciplines. And so I think it's going to be an exciting year. The indoor season will be a little bit slower unless this rule changes. And then the outdoor season may be the best ever.
Before we go, got to ask you about this. Of course, in 1984, everyone knows around here in Chicago that Michael Jordan was the first-round pick for the Chicago Bulls. What they may not know is that you were the 10th-round pick of the Chicago Bulls.
Right.
What kind of basketball player were you?
Well, let's put it this way. When I was in high school, I couldn't even palm a grapefruit. So I guess that ended my basketball career. It was interesting because Michael and I met at the Olympics, and we've known each other through our relationship with Nike for, obviously for many, many years now. But it was fun. I mean, I was drafted in football and basketball, and it was one of those things where the fire hit, and everything was on all cylinders, every single sport, every opportunity, every magazine. It was just a fun year, a lot of pressure and a lot of challenges, but it was a fun year. And what made it even more special, my father was raised in Chicago, and you talk about the pride that he had. I was like, oh, my son was drafted by the Chicago Bulls. It was big for him too.
Now, there's another connection that you do have with Chicago sports, and I think you know where I'm going to go with this, as far as a Bulls-Nets game in 1993. Now, it's been well documented what happened that night as far as the national anthem. But I want to ask you, what's an untold story from that night, or maybe an encounter you had with somebody about that night years down the road?
Well, it's interesting because every once in a while it pops up, and it's I guess a testament to social media now, and also the internet. I don't have as much of an issue as people think about it. I was off that day. I'd been sick and all of that. It happens. But it's funny to me how it's lasted almost 30 years now. And one night has lasted this long. And it just happened. It was with Chicago. And of course, you have stations like ESPN and them that are going to run it over and over. But I bump into people all the time, and probably 3 or 4 times a year someone will bring it up. And you know what? I at first I was like, oh, I can't believe they did that. And then I went into the whatever. Now I'm almost 60 years old, and it's like any press is good press. So I evolved in the way that is now too. You know, when you're 58 and you're a college coach in track and field, and people even bring your name up at all, especially on television or something, then it's not a bad thing.
Carl Lewis joining us here on the stadium. Hey, Carl, it was so great to catch up with you, and good luck the rest of the way, and especially with next year in the track season.
Appreciate it, and keep an eye out for H-Town Speed City, University of Houston.